So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Proptech conference for a course organized by Igloo Home. My name is Anthony, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Igloo Home. We are a smart access company that's headquartered in Singapore, with offices in 8 locations all around the world, including here in the United States. We have designed a series of smart locks and solutions to help consumers and businesses go keyless. Our products have been shipped to over 100 countries around the world. One of the core values and ethos at Igloo Home is to always take initiative and always keep looking for growth. And that is because by ourselves, we will never be the experts at everything. It is always important for us to learn from experts in their fields, and we are always very proactive at doing that. In fact, in Asia, we have led many thought leadership conferences, like running the first Proptech hackathon in Southeast Asia 2 years back, to even hosting the Singapore Smart City Summit with the Singapore government support last year. So property tech or Proptech is an important topic that is very dear to our hearts at Igloo Home. And real estate is an industry that is undergoing a massive change during this pandemic. And so this time, here in a webinar format, very interesting format, in the US Eastern Time Zone, we are really excited to kick off our first Proptech conference for a course in the United States. We have a great schedule lined up throughout the whole day, with speakers from both the private and the public sectors. They will be sharing thoughts around how the cities we're living in might change and adapt with the awakening that this pandemic has given us. We will also hear from VCs on how technology landscape has changed and how startups are navigating it. In fact, you will also hear from the startups themselves too, and you can visit them at the Expo tab on your left side of your screen. Of course, there will also be a special section on the future of smart access, given that it's hosted by Igloo Home. And with all that's going on around us, we thought it would be great to leverage on this opportunity for all of us to do our little part in the fight against COVID. All the ticket fees that are being paid will be donated to Team Rubicon and Black Girls Code to support COVID relief activities and diversity in STEM. And before I end and kickstart the whole conference, I would really like to thank all the speakers who have graciously accepted to be here to share their insightful perspectives at this conference, and also our team in the United States that have worked so hard to put this together in a short span of just a little bit over a month. And with that, I'd like to officially kick off the conference. Do join me in welcoming to stage our first fireside chat between Renato de Castro and Dr. Jonathan Reichental. They both have extremely illustrious bio, but here's a very brief intro about them. So Renato de Castro is a smart cities expert and the ambassador for smart cities at the TM Forum from London. He is also a member of the board of directors at the NGO Leading Cities from Boston and a volunteer senior advisor at the International Telecommunications Union, ITU, the United Nations Agency for Information and Telecommunications. So he will be joined on stage with Dr. Jonathan Reichental, who is the CEO of Human Future, a global business and technology education advisory and investment firm. In fact, he's the former chief information officer for the city of Palo Alto and a multiple award-winning technology leader whose 30 years career has spanned both the private and public sectors. In 2017, he was named as one of the top 100 CIOs in the world, and in 2016, he was named a top influential CIO in the United States. Dr. Reichental is an adjunct professor at several universities, including UC Berkeley and the University of San Francisco. And in fact, he was just sharing that he's the author of an already best-selling book, Smart Cities for Dummies, which has been already released on Amazon. So once again, do join me in welcoming them to stage, and I hope you enjoy the conversation and the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hey, Renato.
How are you? Hi, Jonathan. Good morning for you. Good afternoon for me.
Yeah, because you're in Italy, yeah?
I'm in Italy. Yeah, it's exactly 5 p.m. for me. And as I know that a lot of people from Europe are also watching our talk today, so it's for us it's good afternoon here.
Well, it's a lovely sunny morning here in Northern California. Well, it's great to see you. I always enjoy our conversations. You've had a bit of a tough time there in Italy over the last few months, and you were right beside the epicenter of the crisis in Italy. Can you tell me a little bit about what was happening there and your role?
Yeah, well, I'm exactly 5 kilometers far from ground zero here, and it was exactly the city that started the whole pandemic here in Italy. And I remember it was 1 week before Carnival, and I was going in a family trip that was a promise to my family. We have been traveling a lot, me and you, last year, and following each other, and also meeting. Last time we met in Brazil in November. So
Yeah.
I spent 3 months at home as a promise to the family, and it was the last, well, let's say, personal trip. And we left Italy on the 22nd of February, and the first case here, it was exactly in the 21st of February, and it was really hectic. We spent 1 week in Dubai, and we saw the whole escalation of the problem here in Italy, and all the markets closing air contact with Italy. The last one, it was Qatar, like one day before we was supposed to travel back. So we were very scared to not even getting to come back to Italy, and everything really, evoluted very, very fast here. And as I said, just 5 kilometers from the city that is our neighbor, it got closed in what we call that time a red zone. When we arrived here, it was already everything closed, and it was like, I don't know, 3 days after I arrived here, I put myself as a volunteer for the government, and we started the first task force. But this was really a little bit after China problem, but the world was really easygoing with the. It was not a pandemic. It was still talking about epidemic, and yeah. So everything I can say that I was living in the heart of the hurricane here, and it was intense. It was 3 months intense.
Really, I mean, and you've done some great work there to help. Thank you for that. Why, just really briefly, why do you think Italy was struck so badly?
Well, I've heard a lot. I put together a lot of theory on this time, and I heard from different experts. And basically, I mean, we are in the north part of Italy. It's a very industrial area. It's an area very well connected to China. So they say that probably what happened here was exactly this combination between global connectivity, and beginning of the year we had these casualties of people coming from Germany and coming from China at the same time, and yeah, and we got a quite light winter, but it was a winter with a lot of flu as well. I mean, so yeah, I think everything put it together, and the known real sense of the problem that we got here in Europe put us in a very bad situation, Italy. And then, of course, it spread to Spain, to Germany, to UK. And you see that, yeah, we were quite, in general, the world were quite slow to learn from the experiences. We were quite used to talk about learning from experiences, but not as fast as we were supposed to be doing. And then that was the big problem, I think.
Yeah. And it's lovely to see that things have definitely stabilized and life is coming back to a post-normal.
Yeah, from our side, but now tell us a little bit from your side. I mean, you are still the main country in the world with the problem. I mean, the numbers in the States were going down and now is going up again. And this, this contrasense about opening, reopening or not opening. And we are facing the same problem in Brazil as well. So, but how about States? How do you feel now? You still have the problem knocking the door, or people are feeling that it's gone?
I'm in California, and California is particularly bad. Just yesterday alone, we had 4,000 new cases, new infections, 4,000. So we're sort of like a little bit above, a plateau. It's still in the incremental. Overall, the whole country is experiencing still some increase. you know, if we kind of expand this to the world, we're all trying to figure this out. I mean, you and I, you know, Renato, you and I, we travel around the world. We work with city leaders in every country almost. And you know, one of the deep questions here is, you know, we were not prepared, and why were we not prepared, and how do we need to prepare? So I think we're still in that area here in the US where people mentally are struggling with the challenge. People want so much to go outside and to resume their life, and now they're doing it despite the challenges. You know, this is a country that definitely, as you know, our communities, we're more individual based, so people believe they have personal rights, that the government should mind its own business where it makes sense, and that people want to, if they don't want to wear a mask, they don't have to wear a mask. If they don't want to, if they want to get into crowds, they can get into crowds. So there is this conflict, this tension between the culture and the necessary steps to contain a virus. And so I think we're going through that very complex period right now. So maybe what we could do is set the stage a little bit on smart cities and why and what is the impact of COVID on cities. I was going to just throw out a quick definition because I think for our audience, it would be useful for them to understand what you and I mean by this idea of smart cities. Definitely, you and I know because we know each other so well, we don't care about the term. We don't care if it's smart cities, intelligent cities, smart communities. What we really believe in is our cities have to get prepared for a different kind of future, a future of growing cities, a future of growing expectations, a future of climate crisis, of real tough problems to solve. And we think, and certainly I will say, I believe we can bring technology to bear and new processes, new mindset, so that our cities can be great places to live and work and play. And that's really what the topic is about, is how do we better prepare our cities for a better quality of life? How would you expand that, or how would you maybe go deeper on that thinking on that definition?
This is a very good question. I was talking in a very big event last week in India, and you know, India also is a big problem, and India has been talking about smart cities since the smart mission that was national 2016, and they asked me exactly the question, what changed in the smart city definition with the COVID and the post-COVID world? And I said, well, in my definition nothing changed, because my definition was always under the perspective of the citizens, and for me smart cities are places where everything seems to be conspiring to make our lives better. And I think that is exactly this not only technology-oriented view, but also I think this is the resilience word that should be since ever in a smart city definition, right? Smart city should be an ecosystem that reacts in real time to changes and always focusing in making lives better, right? So I think in my smart city, nothing has changed. My smart city concept was already oriented to this kind of change. However, we could not forecast these, but we saw. And bringing New York as an example, that was for several years and in several different ranks the smartest city in the world with a lot of technology, but then it got hit really sharp there, and technology is not the only thing, right? So yeah, I would say that I still keep the same definition, but we should think deeply in bringing more elements, and mainly should be, we always said that, but now it's very clear that should be in essence multi-stakeholder. It cannot be government. Leadership is important, but leadership is not only a matter about government that is leading, is also the other stakeholders should place a very important leadership in this process. What do you think? I mean, in your Smart City for Dummies, thank you, and congratulations for the book. And how do you see this? I'm sure that you also didn't forecast these as, but it's clear that cities should be resilient to the change, and changes will be a challenge that we are going to be facing more, right?
Yeah, I love those comments. Thank you for that. And thank you for reminding us that this topic is about people. It's about people,
Yep.
right? We often get so distracted by technology and gadgets, but at the end of the day, it's us. It's we who live in cities. I just want to make one comment to our audience. If they'd like to ask you and I a question, if they go to the stage tab on the right-hand side, we'd welcome any questions you have as well. So thank you for the question. Yeah, I'm very privileged to write this book, and it's very popular. So for you and I, Renato, the topic is really hot. People want to know about smart cities. So that's good. We are doing work that matters, and people are interested. It's funny, when I was finishing the book, wrapping it up, there's 400 pages of content about, cities in every aspect. I sent the document, the draft, to my editor, and they made some edits, and they said, can you write a little bit about the pandemic now? Because I hadn't planned to write about it. It's true. I think that, and I love that you brought this up, I really think that the topic of resilience is core to this. Resilience is, in the briefest definition, the ability to not only withstand challenges and disasters, but the ability to bounce back, the ability to come back, and in a city context, come back even stronger and with some good economic opportunities. So I think one of the lessons that I have observed, I wonder what your view is that resilience was always part of the smart city movement, but maybe it was number 8, I don't know, or number 7. I think it's number 2, maybe number 1 now. I think, and I'm confident saying this, a smart city is a resilient city, And so just one quick example, it's an unfortunate one. After the 9/11 attack in New York City, there was a book that was written, a review was done of the event, and this commission wrote this report. And they had a number of findings. Why did 9/11 happen? And one of the findings at the end of the day was there was a lack of imagination. Basically, what the report said was that the country and countries in general could not imagine that such a thing could happen, so we were not prepared. And I thought that's an important lesson. I mean, that we should take away. Cities, I don't think we're thinking about pandemics too much. I mean, some federal governments were. There were some cities that were better prepared, but we weren't planning for it, and we can see the result of not planning, right? So I think one of the things we will take away from this in terms of making our cities better and more resilient is to think through all the disasters and to be better prepared. Now, we can't be prepared for every eventuality, but we can sort of create what I call a risk-based approach. What's the higher likelihood of things happening? Here in California, it's earthquakes, right? So we should be really prepared for earthquakes. Here in California, it's fires. So we should really be prepared for fires. And now we know that disease is more likely too. We have to be more resilient. So how do you think COVID impacts how we think about building our cities and improving our cities in the future?
Yeah, I think that, resilience should be in the planning by design. I mean, resilience should be in the basis of the project, even more than technology, because the change of the technology and how ephemeral the technology get along the time, that you should be always rethinking technology, because technology change a long time. And this is also resilience. So resilience come before technology. I think that resilience was always there. But we didn't take resilience as something to be added in the planning. You wrote the preface of my book, and my book is exactly about this, the startup city. And I see cities it should be much more thinking and acting as a startup rather than a bureaucratic old style city. And I think that, you see how the startups now reacted to the pandemic much, much better than traditional companies. Why? Because resilience is by design in a startup. I mean, they plan less, they act more, they are very good in adjusting directions through the movement. They don't stop the bus to think about the route and then take back the road. So I think that that's exactly what we are learning, and it's still a learning process. I don't know if you have just startup, but we got now a new crash today in Germany in COVID. A factory in Germany with 600 people infected, and they already brought to the city that has these new epicenter almost 1,000 cases in one day. And we saw also 2 days ago New Zealand, they already got the third case today. So you see, I mean, however, we have been passing through these process for the last 3 months, very intense. You still see that we didn't learn well. I mean, because we cannot release, just take for granted that this is past and now it's time to restructure economy. It's true, it's time to restructure the economy, but he's still thinking about the problem that is still not solved, So I think that this is really a mindset of a startup, harder than our traditional way to think cities. I think this is the legacy that the COVID, it was just a catalyzer. A lot of new trends that people are talking about. I think that, the world will become more local. Locality is not necessarily a paradigm against globalization, but localization is an issue that we have been already facing for the last 5-6 years. Now it's more intense and hyper technological, with a big difference. Technology now, after this crisis, mainly here, Italy is a very analog country by mindset, right? People doesn't like technology so much because they didn't see technology as part of their lives, at least to increase the quality of life. And now what I see now here is exactly the opposite, but with sense. So makes no sense the tunnels that Elon Musk is digging in Los Angeles here or Las Vegas or whatever here in Italy, but it makes sense how social network can make society more resilient. So I think that this is a new era that we are starting now, that technology should make sense, and then technology is part again to smart cities, in the sense that citizens engage it or embrace it.
No, so important. Thank you. And again, for anyone who wants to ask Renato and I a question, in the stage tab or the event tab is fine. I'm monitoring it. And again, you got 2 guys here who live and breathe smart cities all over the world. So we'd welcome your questions. Sorry, Renato, you wanted to...
I have a question for you now, Jonathan. You have been working a lot with data and the importance of data in the whole process of a smart city and the whole process of the governance in a city. What has changed? Because now we see that we are using data massively also to try to help with solutions, but then we go through these thin line of privacy. And so how do you forecast the future with this war between data and privacy?
Yeah, no, thanks for the data question. I really put emphasis on that in my book as well. When I was working at the city of Palo Alto, when I started in government, basically, I noticed that as a technologist, a lot of things were similar. You have to run a data center, you got to provide email, you got to give people access to applications. A lot of things are similar, but then there's a lot of things that are different. Every day you could have a new priority because of the nature of current events. There's more bureaucracy. Sometimes that's a bad thing, or sometimes that's a good thing. So there were clear differences. One of the big differences that really hit me hard, particularly as a technologist, was the relationship that the public sector had with data relative to the relationship between the private sector and data. So we've been talking about big data now for quite a while. Private companies use data to be able to create marketing campaigns and reach their customers. They've used data to create new products. They've used data to understand, the marketplace, and it's become, an important area. In fact, it's now a whole new domain called data science, and private companies are prospering through that. Of course, there are challenges, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I get into the public sector, and there's so little talk about all the data. And the interesting thing that's probably not a surprise to folks is where in the public sector everything is constrained, right? There's There's never enough money. There's too many projects. There's not enough talent. It's all constraints. And so you have to all the time prioritize. But there is an abundance of data. Okay. So this is really key. Cities collect data in the everyday action of being a city. And they have to use it for everything from you have to share it for everything from it's the collecting it because of parking tickets and because of birth certificates and all these things. So my first observation was, as cities, we need to take advantage of this data and be able to drive better decisions. So data-driven decision making. And I think that's an area of development. I don't think that's well developed yet. We need to use data to help co-create solutions with our vendor community and with community members through hackathons and all sorts of challenges. So there needs to be a deeper engagement between government, data, and the things that it has to deliver to the community. Now, of course, your question was about this tension between privacy and data, and I think that, by the way, is not unique to government, right? That's something that we experience in all sectors. There can often be a trade-off. We get all the benefits of allowing a little less privacy, but also we have some concerns. It's a very big topic. I do think that we are in a sort of a post-privacy world. It doesn't mean that people have no privacy. It just means that we have to think about privacy different. It's a very relevant question in terms of, for example, the surveillance state and facial recognition today. In the United States, we have some challenges right now with some violence, and so the question is really being discussed around surveillance. So I think, if I could summarize, smart cities have to and do have a better relationship with data to improve things and improve the quality of life for people. But they also need to be really cognizant and intelligent about things like privacy and surveillance. And my recommendation to cities when they ask me this question is, what should we do? Is bring everybody into the conversation. When you are deciding on legislation and regulation for surveillance, for example, bring the community into a very, very deep conversation. Let me ask your thoughts. Do you have a different perspective, perhaps?
No, I think that, and this is a very difficult topic in a global level, because there are a lot of cultural interpretation also about privacy and about the way you see. I mean, if we could now split this talk going through American perspective, a European perspective, or an Asian perspective, and it's completely different. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that, first of all, cities, doesn't matter if they're using or not this data, they are producing data, and this data is there as the oil has been for millions of years without being used, and we are sitting on oil, and then we made from this oil richness and wealthness for the world. I think that, yeah, well, just to summarize from my side, one of the research I've been doing on my doctoral, it was exactly how cities could use data as a kind of monetization process to even substitute taxes, because if you think deeply how we could use data produced in the city, probably we are even not supposed to be paying taxes anymore. These data that could produce wealthness. And then I a little bit abandoned this idea when we decided to put it in practice. The new laws of privacy here in Europe became a hell. Even in university, I was dealing with this research. From one side, I got a proposal of a sponsorship to my research from a very important financial group in Europe, and the other side, I got a very, very big, let's say, blocking from a side of the university that was a little bit against this perspective of monetizing public data. So I said, look, politically speaking, it's better to leave this for the future, because it's still a little bit, gray field, and people used to get very personal perspective. It's not technical, it's personal, so it's complicated. But I totally agree that data, we should be at least to promote more quality of life. Data can be a very good fuel for our smart cities.
Yeah. Well, that's a great answer, and I hope that very soon I'll be calling you Dr. Renato Castro, or Dr. Castro, when you get your PhD. Let's look at a couple of questions here. So Anthony asks, do you have any examples of where cities brought their people into the process of developing a smart city? So I'll quickly answer that. The one, this repeats a lot, and I think one of the ways that happens is through the formation of committees that focus on projects. In many cities, there's an effort to expand, for example, internet access and create more bandwidth. And there are committees that are set up that are made of members of the public and even experts in this topic who help governments work through that. The one area that I'm fascinated by is having your community get engaged in budgeting, and many communities have been experimenting with budget participation. So each year, it's one of the lengthy, complicated process of running a city is you have to figure out the budget. And usually it's done by department heads and the city manager and the elected officials. But now governments are asking their communities to come into a room. Probably we'll have to do it virtual now, and let's hammer through the issues. And what's interesting about it is, there is a tension between the community and cities because sometimes they're not on the same page for whatever reason. And people can be critical of that. The community can be critical, particularly in how money is spent. But it's interesting when you involve people, because then people in the community see, firsthand, if we move this money to this department, we don't have any money for this department, and it's all a matter of trade-off. So you see this work done in San Jose, California, and many cities around the world trying budget participation. Do you have an example, maybe also, Renato, of bringing the community into the smart city development?
Well, first of all, this example is very good. One of the first experiences in citizens' budget, helping cities to get budget distributed, was in Brazil. It was in Curitiba, and this was exported also here to Europe, to Portugal. So I see very positive, and I saw also a same way, but in a larger scale in Moscow, using already. It was back 3 years ago. It was already using apps to do this in a very large scale, but also in a very sensitive topics, that it was the eldermen talking directly to voters during the process. So it was very interesting, the numbers there, because they are not obliged to vote there in Moscow, in Russia. And at that time, I was following this project there, and they got like 75% participation, public participation in this electronic voting for budget, against like 25% in elections voting. So I think that citizens, and this will change, technology bringing citizens inside the process probably will allow us to revise the whole political process. Maybe in the future, I don't need someone to be directly representing myself in a parliament if I can represent myself digitally, So I see, for me, among all the 5 big stakeholders in the smart city process, I think that citizens, it's still in a very, again, gray position, because it's very difficult to everybody is a citizen, right? The mayor is a citizen, the entrepreneur is a citizen, but the society represented in a civil organized society is very difficult to put inside. And that's exactly what happened here in Italy during the pandemic. And I think that our time is already getting to the end. So just to finalize, and this was a white paper that I have just released about, we called Economy Kilometer 4.0, was exactly putting together the sense of Kilometer Zero that was born basically in Italy in the 80s, value a lot the local and so on, with the fourth economic industrial revolution. And what happened here, it was exactly the rise of the community in take a very let's say direct and active position in trying to solve the problem. It was not the government, it was not the other stakeholders, public sector, even church here. I mean, Catholic Church in Italy plays a very society, but nobody took a very specific active position, but society did. So I think that we are starting this new phase of seeing people responding as a citizen, not as the role that they place or they play in the society.
Yeah, fantastic. Hey, you know what? I always learn so much from you. It's so much fun talking. It looks like you and I could probably talk for a couple hours. We are scratching the surface. Couple of wrap-up comments. I do see the question from Zan there. We're not ignoring you, but we do have to run. We would love to answer your question, Zan. So for you, Renato, how can people get in touch with you if they'd like to maybe have you speak or even help them?
Well, it's always a pleasure. I'm very active in LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn it's a good way to meet the whole ecosystem. So yeah, just look for Renato de Castro, and I'm always open to discuss. I think that this is the way that we make it happen in a global scale, right? Is to discussing, to exchanging experience on time, and everything is changing. The real disruption is not technology, is the speed of change. So I think that it's very important to get connected. Yeah. And yeah, we are very active. Also, Jonathan, I think that to reach you, it's very easy through LinkedIn, right? And now also through the book. So I deeply recommend people to buy. If you are not so expert in smart city, it's fantastic. But if also you are an expert in smart city, I think the book is full of nice insights about not only what's happening, what has happened in the smart city, but mainly what's to come.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. And likewise, your Startup City book can be accessed on Amazon, and people can find out more from you. LinkedIn is very good for me, as is Twitter. I'm quite active on Twitter, which is at Reichental, my last name. On the event website, I think you'll find our contact details too. Renato, thank you so much. This is amazing. Thank you. You've been amazing, and it's always a pleasure. We'll talk again really soon. Thank you.
Sure, my pleasure. Guys, have a nice day there. Congrats for the event, and yeah, see you around. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you too. Thank you.